Good afternoon. I'm Alicia Wilson and Vice President for Economic Development for Johns Hopkins University and Health System. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to welcome you to this week's editions of Entrepreneurship Matters. Entrepreneurship Matters is a conversation we started 36 weeks ago at the urging of an amazing young person entrepreneur, Cameron Moses. She's the owner of KRS Smoothies. But to have a real rich conversation with an up and coming and an established entrepreneur. What we know is that entrepreneurship and businesses aren't built in a day, that it takes undiluted passion, a long-term commitment, multiple failures to make it happen. And today is no different. We are going to get to have an amazing conversation with two entrepreneurs that I would say no one can hold a candle to, who are in the candle making business. This is the first time we featured two entrepreneurs in this space. So it is my pleasure to introduce Kendall Brown, as well Amina, Ahmad. Let me give you their bios, which are quite long, but I'm going to give them quickly so we can get right into the conversation. So Kendall, Amina, you can come on camera and I will, I'm going to introduce you. So Kendall is the owner of 228 Grant Street Candle Company, a Black-owned brand based here in Baltimore and founded in 2016, featuring unique and curated, deeply aromatic fragrance combinations chosen for every mood and every season. I'm not going to tell you where the name of his company comes from. I'm going to let him have that thunder. But he really, his influences are really surrounding the simple acts of hospitality and sharing of things made and cultivated by his grandparents. Kendall came to candle making after having been on a winding road of professional life as a minister, seminary admissions director, and regional staff member of a denomination. Though all of them were fulfilling roles, he had a deep longing to engage in work that engaged more of his creativity, body, and free spirit. He is probably not an unfamiliar face to many of you. He's been featured on the Today Show, ABC World News Tonight, and in The Strategist, Cosmopolitan Magazine, Essence, Esquire, and we even talked about on Oprah Daily. So welcome, Kendall. Really so happy to have you here today. And then Amina, Ahmad, is an artist. We're going to get into that. That's really neat. And a founder and maker behind Handmade Habitat, an all-natural soy wax candle and beauty goods company based in Washington, D.C. She is a lifelong do-it-yourselfer. She started making candles in her college apartment while studying environmental science and policy at the University of Maryland. And she learned about toxic ingredients in many of our everyday household items and set out to do something completely different, which is to create a product that is eco-friendly and all natural. And years later, Handmade Habitat creates a line of 13 plus candles and is carried in over 50 stores nationwide. So I think we don't have an up and coming on this. We've got two seasoned, really accomplished entrepreneurs on today. So I'm ready to get right into this conversation. Welcome, Amina and Kendall. Really a pleasure to have you. This is one, I don't think this might be our best yet. No one can hold it to you. And we've already started getting questions in and comments. So let me give everyone information about how they can join in this conversation. We're going to be talking for the next hour, hearing their stories, but you can get in on the conversation. So if you're in Zoom, you can put your questions in the chat. If you're on Facebook, where I know a lot of you're already talking on Facebook, so you can put your questions and your comments in the chat on Facebook. We'll get to them. And if you're listening on your phone, where I know many of you are listening, you can type your question, text it in to 22333, not while you're driving, 22333, and type JHUWL in the message, and I'll get all of those messages and we'll weave them into the conversation. Why don't we get started? So why don't we get started with Amina? Tell us, how did you get started in, what inspired you to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I guess kind of stumbled into it. I was in college, and I was in college during the peak recession years, graduated during the recession. And there was a summer while I was in college where I didn't really find like a exciting job or a good internship. And so I just started taking all the things that I had made over the course of my life out to different craft shows. And I got very quickly addicted to it. The company did not look anything like it looks like today. I was primarily making and sewing bags and clothing and doing some housewares. And that market, like sort of immediate feedback that you get, the interaction with the customer, figuring out what works and what doesn't. And I always really loved like setting up a booth. It was very quickly addicting for me. And over the years, I just kind of tried out different products and eventually found my way into candle making. And by the time that I had gotten there, I realized that making candles as opposed to making one-off bags is a better business model, because you can scale up very easily or faster than you can when you're sewing an item that might take hours to make one of. So that's kind of how I got started, and it's just grown slowly over the last almost 11 years.
Wow, wow. And we know that you're all over the nation with your store and with your candles and store. So we're going to get into that, but I want to also hear from Kendall. Kendall, I know you broadcasting live on Facebook. I heard that. That's what that that was Kendall broadcasting live on Facebook from his page. But Kendall, tell us what inspired you to be an entrepreneur?
So it's a long, winding story. The short of it is, I would be driving in my car, and for a number of years, from the time I was about 18 or 19, and I'm a little bit older than that right now. And I would look down at my hands and say, I know I'm supposed to be doing something with my hands. I used to play the piano, used to draw, used to make things. But for years and years and years, I had this deep longing to work with my hands and to be more active in my work. And in 2014, I was in a store. I've been a candle lover for years. It's been a part of my writing process. When I was active in ministry, whenever I wrote a sermon, whenever I had to write a report for work, lighting a candle was the first thing that I did. So fast forward, I was in a store, picked up a candle, first department I go to, and I don't tell people this all the time, but I literally heard a voice that said, "You can make this." It was nowhere on my radar. I had made a candle project as a part of an art class in high school or something, but it literally just hit me like a snowball. And the years of longing and discerning and wondering, what it was that was in my hands, came into being right in that moment. And I went home and got on the Google and looked up how to make a candle and ordered a candle making kit. And it literally just started coming and coming, the concept, the story, and made some candles and sent them to a couple friends and sent them to my mom and my sister-in-law and said, "Hey, try these, tell me what you think." And here we are, a few years later in, probably 90 stores. So
Wow.
This found me, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And so both of you seem sort of to have these serendipity moments, right? Where everything came together to start you in your business. And so that leads me to this next question, which is, how did you actually start? This is where people take out their pens and their pads. They start taking notes. They start learning from you. How did you go from, Kendall, you talked about, having this sort of watershed moment, going and realizing this is what you were supposed to be doing. Amina, you talked about, selling all these other products, but then realizing candles was your craft. But how did you start your business? Take us through and help us to understand, how did you go from idea, desire, to now businesses that are really nationwide? So, Kendall, I want to start with you, and then I'll go to Amina.
So it started for me many years before I actually started the business, and I have to thank my parents for this. Something that we did almost every Saturday during the summer was to go to an open air market in my hometown in Danville, Virginia. So that culture of being in markets was just ingrained in me and is kind of my zen and my happy place. All of my adult life, I've gone to farmers markets and open air markets because of the time that I spent with my parents. And in my early 20s, I started actively engaging some of the vendors at markets, just asking them, how did you structure your life to be able to do this? And just asking them questions about, how they got into the business. So I'm just a very inquisitive person. So I started with a lot of questions and started talking to people. And then when I had the idea to start the business, YouTube is one of the greatest resources. Just started looking at videos of folks who had already been on this journey and just started making mental notes. One important thing, I had also started to kind of structure my life in a way that would lend itself to give me some freedom and some breathing room to be able to lead a more creative life. I had two part-time gigs. I was denominational kind of in-house consultant for diversity. So I was doing that part-time. And then I was also running a program for LGBTQ plus seminarians, primarily African-American seminarians across the country to do contextual learning. So I was running that program. So I was basically working from home with both jobs, and it gave me the latitude to be able to do some other things creatively. So structuring my life in a way that created some breathing room to be able to do that. With one of the part-time jobs, I took most of the money from that job to start the business, and I started with about $2,000. And whatever money came in from the business, I put it back into the business. So it was really a self-study. Resources, YouTube, books from Barnes and Noble on starting a business, just building a library and looking at best practices from folks who were doing it. And this is not no shade, but I saw some of the people who were entrepreneurs, and I knew that if they could do it, I could do it. So I just looked around and looked at who was doing it and gained those lessons. And and here we are.
No, absolutely. You dropped a lot of nuggets in what you just said. I'm going to pull out. I have 6 written down, 6 points of reference. One, which is you went into research the marketplace, right? Open air market is one of the venues where your products are sold. So you really got a deep understanding too. You went in and you did market research, really through these vendors, really asking the questions and trying to understand sort of nuts and bolts of how to work. Then you went on YouTube, which is business one-on-one academy for a lot of people. It's my fixed academy, where you get to find out all of the do's and don'ts. 4, you talked about structuring your life and your workplace to be able to do this work, right? So what were the things that were necessary for you to be able to launch your business? 5, you had that part-time job. So you had the initial seed capital that you used to start your business, and then you reinvested, right? You learned, understood the business, grew in the business, and helped yourself to understand. I mean, all really, really great points for folks to take away. How about you, Amina? What did you do to sort of go from starting the business, having an idea, and then starting the business?
It's very similarly, actually. I did the same thing. I was a very big fan of craft shows. Where I grew up, there weren't a lot of things like farmers markets or shows like that. So whenever I did come upon them, I was like always very excited by them. And I remember just talking to people at different craft shows and just being like, how do you do this? Like, how do you live like this kind of life? And a lot of people, I think, honestly, were just like, you just do it. You just do your thing. You come out here, you apply to the market, and you do it. But when I started my business, I think that I was also in a similar place. Like I had just graduated. When I graduated college, I had a full-time job still on campus at University of Maryland. And it was a temporary job. It was a 6-month position. It ended in November, which is conveniently, you know, like right before the holiday season. And I had the option to continue in that job or to jump in to run my business part-time. And I was also offered a job at one of the markets that I had been vending at for a long time. I was just doing work like on the side for them, kind of intern level work, and just kind of promoting the vendors. And they were like, well, we could really use a person who is more focused in this area to help other people build their businesses. So I had this part-time job. I really just had very small goals when I first started out. And it was, when I was in college still, it was, can I just sustain my crafting hobby? And then after I got out of college, it was like, well, could this pay part of my bills, you know? And I still did have the part-time job to lean on too. And then as it grew and grew, I realized like there was a point where if I didn't go full-time, when was I ever going to go full-time? And that was around 2015. So then I dove in full-time, and I've been full-time since then. But yeah, it was, and it's not always been easy or lucrative, that's for sure. There have been the first years that I was really doing this full-time, there was a lot of trial and error and figuring out how to grow from where I was to really pay myself salary. And but yeah, like it took a while, but I'm gotten here now.
No, exceptional. I took 4 points from you that you sort of lifted up, and others probably have 5. We could debate whether it was 5 or 4, but first, learn the craft. And you went, just like Kendall, went to the craft shows, went to the open air markets, learn the craft. 2, you used time was on your side. So you actually used timing, right? The November timeframe really helped you to have a little bit of a competitive advantage, which many entrepreneurs who come on here talk about timing being so critical. 2, you talked about this tipping point, and that's what that's going to be my next question. But you talk about really starting with a part-time job and still doing business, getting to the tipping point where you either go full-time to grow or you don't, and making that decision. And then really what I call research and development, constant research and development. You call it trial and error, but really iterating over time to figure out what's going to work. So why don't we get to that tipping point? We have a number of entrepreneurs on. I can see the questions. Feel free to keep putting your questions in. I'm seeing them all, and I will get to all of your questions. But a couple of questions that are coming up are around this tipping point. Like, so how did you know, and Kendall, I'm interested in with you as well, how did you know to go from, your part-time job with your business to launching into your business full-time? What was that tipping point for you, Amina?
I reached a point in my job where I was putting in a lot of emotional energy into that job and a lot of effort into something that at the end of the day, I didn't own. And so I thought, am I going to keep putting all of my ideas and energy into this other person's business, or am I going to invest in my own business? And I decided that it wasn't as worth it to invest in someone else's business. It was another small business essentially, and it wasn't like a larger institution where you have a job and a career path. Like either I was going to invest everything into someone else's business and grow it with them, or I was going to stand on my own 2 feet and grow something that I had built myself. And I decided to bet on myself in that instance.
Huge thing you just said, bet on yourself, and making that conscious decision. How about you, Kendall? How did you go from $2,000. You could have said, maybe I work another part-time job, make it make 4,000, 6,000, 10,000. But how did you decide that that was your tipping point?
So I went from 2 part-time positions to 1. So I held on to one of those positions, and it was basically conference planning. So there were specific times of the year where I was
Sure.
more engaged than others. So I still had the latitude and the breathing room to be able to do something with that one position. One of the things I did was sit down and look at my basic expenses and say, okay, this is what I need to pay the bills.
Mhm.
And once the business grew to that point, I said, okay, with what I'm doing here, you know, if I had more time to spend, I know that I would be able to at least double,
Mhm.
what I was doing. So once I had that cushion of being able to meet monthly expenses, I did the numbers and said, hey, this has grown to the point where it's sustainable. And so I just, like Amina, I took the leap and said, it's now or never. I can't continue just building someone else's dreams.
Mhm.
But it's time. It's time for me to go and do something for myself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, both of you started your businesses well before COVID, well before we knew anything about SARS-CoV-2. One of the questions we've gotten in the chat is to really understand, how has COVID impacted your businesses, and how have you shifted or made adjustments in light of that? So, Kendall, and then Amina.
Wow. So in talking about this, it's kind of bittersweet because I realize that for many folks who are entrepreneurs, who are business owners, and I'm thinking about all of the friends that I have, a lot of friends in New York and other parts of the country that have really, really been hit hard by COVID. So thinking about those businesses that didn't make it. Candles, they are what I call the comfort food of home goods.
Mhm.
So we were when COVID hit, we had probably 70 active accounts. And once those businesses closed, that business migrated to our website.
Mhm.
And it just started to boom. Prior to that, we were probably 70% wholesale, or maybe even 80% of our business was wholesale. And then it totally flipped
Wow.
to internet sales. And then at the beginning of the pandemic and the uprising surrounding George Floyd's death, there was a lot of press around Black businesses.
Mhm.
We were mentioned by New York Magazine, The Strategist, in an online article about Black businesses to support during the pandemic. I was sitting at home, I guess it
Whoa.
was May, and I have my phone, Shopify on my phone. Every time there's a sale, I get a ding, I get a high from that. And I was sitting and my phone was beside me and I heard ding, 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 ding. And that went on literally all day. And it did not stop for like the rest of the week. And I did the analytics and I saw where it was coming from. So that happened. And then more coverage came as a result of that. Cosmopolitan, other online magazines picked us up. And then a few months later, was sitting at my desk and an email came, and that was from the Today Show. Said, we'd like to feature you as a small business that's navigating the pandemic. And we had a couple of weeks to prepare for that. Fast forward a couple months ago, the exact same thing happened. ABC got an email from ABC. we'd like to feature you as a small business. And we had one day to prepare for that. I wasn't going to do it, and talked to our team, and they convinced me, and we did with both, all three of those things. We probably did maybe 6-7 years worth of business.
Wow.
So it's
Wow, that is a blessing.
yeah.
Such a blessing. Such a
Been
blessing.
absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so amazing. That's
Yeah.
so inspiring too.
Yeah, it is. And humbling.
Yeah, man. Wow. Wow. How about you, Amina? How has COVID impacted your business?
Similarly, it's been a year where we shifted from doing probably, well, I think at the end of the year, we probably were still 50% on our own retail, and 50% wholesale. But at the beginning of the pandemic, that was so uncertain, and there have been a lot of ups and downs with that. So at the beginning of the pandemic, when all the stores closed, it was really great to realize how big of a reach we actually had, because we were selling to so many small boutiques, especially in DC, that it was hard to know like how recognizable is our brand, right?
Yeah.
But once the stores all closed, there were, April and May last year were really insane. I had moved operations completely to my apartment and was shipping from there.
Same here.
Yeah, just like dozens and dozens and dozens of boxes piled by the mailboxes in my apartment, just apologizing to my neighbors all the time. And then as things kind of progressed, we had already been working with a few Whole Foods right before the pandemic hit. And then once things like kind of progressed, it was really the only store, grocery stores or primary stores that anybody's even going into. And we probably were in maybe like 2 or 3 Whole Foods before the pandemic. And now we're up to about a dozen different ones. And we ship out, a few orders every week to different Whole Foods, mostly on in the Mid-Atlantic region. And that's actually at a time where I really anticipated our wholesale to go down significantly. It's actually kept our wholesale up. And it's funny because it's essentially just one account. It's one account, but with just so many locations that it's been really great. But the biggest thing with COVID that's been difficult for my business is, and I'm sure Kendall's experienced this too, it is sourcing materials, because if there's anything that's selling during the pandemic, it is candles. And there have been just months where we can't get our classic signature jar in that we ship out, thousands of throughout the year. So that's been the biggest challenge for me, but I'm just so grateful that this year has given everything that it has. And it was very uncertain if what was going to happen. There have been plenty of days where I just sat in lots of anxiety on my couch wondering if this was going to be okay. And it was a good year for us last year. Despite everything going on business wise, we still were doing fine.
And so, I mean, both of you have such inspiring stories, and I know that has what you said is just inspired someone else that was sort of wondering how are they going to make it through the COVID pandemic. We never thought a year, but to see you both thriving, just kudos to both of you and the strength of your brands and being able to do that during this time. And that leads us to a question that we got posed on Facebook, which is, you both talked about sort of the ebbs and flows of entrepreneurship, the adversity as well as the highs. And we received this question, which is, what keeps you going? How are you able to persevere? And I imagine behind this question is and ask for sort of what someone should be thinking about to persevere during the valleys. It's different when you're on the mountaintop. Mountaintop's great. Valley, somebody has to pray you out of the valley. So how both of you, and I'm gonna start with you, Amina, what keeps you going? And then Kendall, I'd love to hear from you as well on this topic.
Well, one thing that keeps me going is really just like the basic need that if I don't make money, like me and my dog aren't eating this week, That's
the dog, that's right.
I'm really just working for my dog. No, it's really nice to I think that one thing that I struggle with my business is just the repetition of making the same thing over and over again. Like you can see behind me on the shelves, we have, 7 scents that come in 2 or 3 different sizes. And those 21 candles we're pouring all year long. And sometimes it just gets boring and exhausting, even if like financially we're doing well, or, we got featured in something great, it's always great. But at the end of the day, sometimes I get very bored with doing the same thing over and over again. So one way that I've figured out how to break that up is just trying new things, and just kind of, especially last year when things were at the beginning of the pandemic, when things were so uncertain, I was just like, well, we have to keep making and selling things. And I kind of went back to my roots of DIYing, and I was like, well, this week I'm making masks, and next week we're going to collaborate with a ceramic artist and make a candle like out of a ceramic vessel. I'm a big ceramics collector in general. And so I just kind of was like, well, we're just going to make these one-off things, or like, just make a dozen or make 30 or 40 of one product and see how it goes. And that actually was something that I didn't anticipate doing so well. And it was something I resisted before because so much of our business model was based around the margins for wholesale. And once wholesale wasn't really an option, it was really freeing because I was like, I can make whatever I want and price it whatever I want. And if it sells, then it's done. And it was really nice in that way. So I guess the thing that keeps me going in the valleys is like the creative freedom and just trying to come up with something fun and different that I haven't tried before.
How about you, Kendall? What keeps you going?
I could say ditto to everything that Amina just said. Supply chain issues. Once we found out we were going to be on the Today Show and started making calls to try to get our signature jars, it was like nothing. So we had to piece together an order from a small order from here, a small order from there, and it was a total of probably about 7 different companies that we had to source jars from, and it's been one thing after the other. It was jars first, it was wicks, it was lids, and it's still jars, wicks, and lids. So every day there's something else. And it does get monotonous once you're at a place where you have to keep cranking out the same thing over and over. And what I've tried to do, similar to Amina, is collaborative projects. We did a ceramic vessel, things that allow me some breadth and width to be able to do more creative projects, but it does get daunting and challenging. But you find ways, and I'm grateful for the team that I have. We have 6 people here now. We had some temporary employees, and we're up to about 11 at one time.
Wow.
So bringing in people to handle the things that are monotonous and the things that and kind of giving people the ability to do what they enjoy doing, as much as possible. And you find ways to make it work. During the slow times, if there's a lull, you start wondering, am I on the right path? And then if you keep your nose to the ground and keep following the path, then something happens. And when you know that this is the path that you're on, and it's something that in my case, this found me, and so it's a blessing given to me, and so I have to be a faithful steward over it. And it's something that I share with community. So community has made this dream possible. My ancestors have made this dream possible. The name of our company, 228 Grant Street, is my grandmother's and my grandfather's address. It was the home.
I couldn't get to that.
I beat you to it. That was
my next one.
I beat you to it. So I'm accountable to them as the inspiration for this dream. And I'm accountable to all of the folks who are the wind behind my back. So that's what keeps me inspired during times that are a bit more challenging.
No, absolutely. I mean, both of you have just tremendous stories. I mean, I think it's so heartwarming to know 22 Grand Street is the address of your grandparents' home.
Mhm.
The beautiful, beautiful symbolism as you think about burning your candles. And let me say, both of you have amazing candles. We're gonna let everybody see those candles, understand, because we're getting some questions in about the favorite scents. I guess they're trying to decide which ones to buy on your website. So everybody go to the websites on your other device. We'll get to that question in just a minute. But we have a question around what have you done to make your brand unique, right? You could think there are a lot of candle companies, but both of you have pretty unique brands. You stand out very well. So how did you build a brand in an industry that, and most of the folks that come on here, most of our entrepreneurs are in industries where they're not the only one, right? We have not had one entrepreneur on here who is the only one in their industry. They have plenty of competitors. But how do you distinguish yourself? So can I start with you and then Kendall?
I think that, well, so because my company was never founded in like one specific product, I think that it was always founded in an ethos, and that is of being environmentally friendly, slow living, very eco-friendly and mindful. And I think that's how, whenever I'm adding something in, it has to stay on the ethos. So I think that's what makes it stand out. I think that I get suggestions all the time of things that I should add in, like beer can candles, which I come in and make those in his own
Beer
time.
can candles.
Yeah, but I'm like, that's really not what we do. We do, things that are made for people who like to look at flowers and do yoga and live like more consciously, very mindfully. So even though I've kind of gotten a little bit away from more of like a yogi focused roots, we still make everything to be very mindful, very like calm, very peaceful, very earthy. So I just try to stay on our aesthetic and ethos as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Kendall?
So for us, it was, this jar was part of my inspiration. This apothecary jar. It's the candle that I picked up and I heard the voice. It was in an apothecary jar, kind of similar to this. So
Wow.
this is a part of our identity, and this has been the selling point. And it's impossible to get now in the States.
That sort of jar?
This jar, you cannot buy it anywhere in the States in great supply. So, and that happened like 2 years into the business. So, so having branding. In my previous life, I did marketing for seminary, for recruitment purposes. So, so I have an eye that lends towards branding and marketing, and really focusing on that early on. Whenever I'm in like on a candle making group on Facebook or other places and people are talking about, what they should focus on, branding. Once you know your craft, once you know how to make a good candle, branding is what's going to set you apart. So invest in the photo shoot, from the beginning. I invested in a $500 photo shoot from the beginning, and it made a world of difference for the website, for wholesale line sheet, for social media. That put us, so far ahead of other brands. And then second thing, photography, website, having a quality website, and then really having a compelling story. And at the end of the day, that's really all we have is our story about why we're here, why we're inspired to do what we do. Our fragrances are curated, you know, like Amina, I get asked to do many different kinds of things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a monkey bread fragrance candle, you know, that's, and I won't. There are many banana bread candles, you know, if you want baked goods, you know, you can go to one of those unnamed stores and buy one of those candles, and that's not shady, you know, I'm not saying that to be shady, but that's not who we are. It's curated fragrances inspired by nature, inspired by travel, you know, clear on who our customer is. You know, it's the Crate and Barrel, it's the West Elm customer, it's the, you know, Restoration Hardware, but who appreciates something that's artisanal, that's handmade, that's local, that's Black owned. So.
No, absolutely. Both of you. I'm going to run out of time. So many people are asking questions in the chat. They are one inspired by both of you. So I'm going to give you. I will give you your flowers in just a moment. All the people that love your brands that are blowing up on Facebook and the like. But let me ask you this. Let's look at your company. I'll confess to everybody. I've had Kendall's. I met Kendall. Kendall doesn't remember me. I remember Kendall. Kendall was a business that we featured at our Meet the Maker event, probably about in your first year of business, maybe right after your
second,
your second year of business.
Yeah,
and
we were part of Made in Baltimore by then. Yeah. Yep,
and I bought the Meyer lemon and lavender candle from you. It's right there. Oh, look at that! It's coming out. All right, tell people a little bit about your candles. Tell them about your scents, like what's inspiring in them. Sell the product. People want to buy, so they want to know what's the difference between the different ones. They love to buy your lemon. So go ahead.
So as I mentioned before, the fragrance combinations are unique and curated for folks who love something that's not overly sweet or, you know, too far in one given direction. Our line is for folks who like natural smelling fragrances and candles that don't knock you out the door when you come in the room, but you can smell them across the room. We use 100% soy wax. Soy burns clean. It doesn't produce the level of soot if you keep your wick trimmed properly. It's more sustainable than other forms of wax. Paraffin wax is something that's used in many of the less expensive candles, and paraffin burns at a really high temperature. It's basically the waste product of the refinery process. So it produces a lot of toxins. So stay away from paraffin candles, buy natural wax candles. So we have fragrance combinations unique like cedar and vanilla. And it's a natural vanilla, and it's not the really sweet artificial smelling vanilla that's found in a lot of different candles. Meyer Lemon and Lavender is our top seller. We have three different sizes right now. We have the 16-ounce apothecary, 9-ounce amber jar. Yep, and this is our top seller. This burns about 55 hours if you keep your wick trimmed. And then we have the 4-ounce travel tin. If you're looking to try a number of different fragrances, this is a good option to find your favorite fragrance. Yep. So amber and sandalwood, botanical garden, which is our floral fragrance, but not overly sweet. Cedar and vanilla. We have coconut and bergamot, which is a really seductive, alluring fragrance. Ginger and lime, which is a great kitchen fragrance. Meyer lemon and lavender, oak moss and amber, mahogany and teakwood, and these are the combinations. Sea salt and orchid, tobacco and patchouli, and wild blackberry and absinthe, which is, you know, people wonder how it smells, but it is, if you think of a spa fragrance, wild blackberry and absinthe would fall into that category. So That's a little snapshot of what we have, and everything is in stock on the website.
All right, we told them to stock up because y'all, so we made sure. Let me tell us about yours. I have purchased for one of my friends in Chicago. So she was supposed to be on here. She got a meeting, but she'll watch it later. I bought her the soul. So tell us a little bit about your candles and what everyone can anticipate.
Yeah, so we actually have a Soothe the Soul one right here.
Oh, it's a good one. It's tall, and I was like,
yeah. So we have 7 different scents that come in 3 different sizes. The littlest size we only offer in like a gift set of 4. So if you ever want to sample a bunch of different scents, you can always get the gift set and then you can try 4 different ones. But so we have the meditative prayer style candle, and then we also have like a signature jar. It's like more of a like minimalist aesthetic. The lavender eucalyptus is one of our top sellers. It's like sitting in a spa. It's very relaxing and it will put you to sleep, but I would suggest just being careful because I have fallen asleep with it burning before.
oh no.
So these meditative ones are really fun because they're very like tall. They burn for a long time. They're one of my favorites. I have them in the house all the time. And then I love the little jars because they fit into every corner. They make good gifts for people. Typically, we also have like seasonal lines. Our holiday line has 3 different scents to celebrate the holidays, and they're featured around like different scents at the table, like sort of a Christmassy tree scent, but it's more of, I like to describe it as like a log cabin scent, and then like a nostalgic scent. Lately, we've actually in the last year, partially because of the pandemic, but also partially because it was something I wanted to try for a long time, is we've put some of our more popular scents into these custom candles. And so you can actually like write a note, and I type it up on a typewriter that my mom found in her basement, and we can send a note
really cool.
to friends. Yeah, it was really nice during the pandemic, and it's actually one of those things that became really fun for me to see how other people want to express, notes and send things to people. I always tell people during the pandemic, we basically became a gift shop for everyone. We were sending notes to everyone across the country. And so we have 4 different scents in our typewriter candles, and they all come in this box, and every scent is like the gift of something. So our spearmint scent is like the gift of clarity. Our geranium rose scent is the gift of love. Our lavender eucalyptus is the gift of rest, and our lavender geranium is the gift of self-care, because it's a very like relaxing and opening scent. But yeah, we offer a lot of different scents, and all of our scents are mindfully linked different like mantras or yoga poses. So for example, the aloe and green tea candle that you might see in the jar is the same as the Soothe the Soul scent. It's very relaxing. Our orange bergamot scent is more energizing. So in our taller form, it's called Warrior. Yeah. So things like that, where we've really tried to find the right scent for the right feeling that you want in your life.
Yeah. That is phenomenal. So let me and I know people are buying right now, so I'm going to get to some questions that they can listen to while they're going on to your sites. How did you go about building your clientele? Both of you have quite a following, folks who are repeat customers. So how did you go about building that clientele? That's a question we started to receive. Kendall?
So Baltimore has been so kind to us. I'm not a Baltimore native, but I have deep roots in Baltimore. My grandmother had 3 siblings that relocated from Danville, Virginia to Baltimore and raised
We'll claim you.
And raised families here. And my family was always back and forth to Baltimore. So we have deep roots here. And the local markets here, Greater Goods, which happened the first Saturday of every month at our house. We started doing that early on, built up a clientele and a dedicated following who came looking for us every weekend, or every time it was held. And then Charm City Craft Mafia instrumental to our growth. Twice a year, the spring event and then the holiday event, we met so many folks who became loyal customers. And then Trove, which is no longer in business in Hamden, they carried the widest selection of candles here in Baltimore. Trove sold so many of our candles when they were open, and they were just incredible to us, and I just can't sing their praises enough. Flourish was one of our first stores on Alicia Brown on St. Paul Street, has a small boutique. And again, Alicia has been an incredible part of our growth. So just really just on the ground, just building customers and clientele just one by one, doing local markets. And it's something that I love and I miss. I miss that reaction of seeing how folks respond to the candles, and can't wait to be able to do that again.
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been looking up because I'm trying to make sure my carts are right so that no one takes my stuff. If I put it in the cart, I won't lose it, right? If I put it in the cart, I won't lose it while people are watching. How about you? Amina, how did you go about building your client base?
Similarly, I started out at doing craft shows. There were years where there was not a weekend that I was off from a craft show for the first couple of years. And I did a lot of the ones in DC because I was always primarily based in DC. I used to live right outside the line of the city in Tacoma Park. I did a lot of neighborhood markets, and especially doing them right around where I lived, I met a lot of people who bought candles from me and became good friends with a lot of them over the years. It's been really nice. And we've done a lot of the different, Crafty Bastards in DC is a very big, cult following craft community. The Charm City Craft Mafia, I would say, is the same thing for Baltimore. And that's mostly where I've been in Baltimore at that show. And then it's also, building the relationship with the stores. In DC, Shop Made in DC became a very big thing a few years ago. And they had a lot of visibility on them. So having our product there really created a bigger audience for us. And then it's doing all of our own marketing too. Instagram is a really great way to connect with people. Although as an introvert, I don't love being available all the time on social media. I might go on there and post a couple of things.
You two are introverts?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Candles. I just want to.
Wait, no. You can both. Let me ask you this: we have before the show, I did try to get Oprah, so we're hoping she's watching, Oprah, and we have a couple other folks that we are hoping are on here, some investor types, and so want to give you all both a moment to talk to them and tell them, how can they be supportive of your businesses? How can they be supportive? And then we have a whole host of folks just like me who are consumers. We just buying gifts out here, trying to invest in businesses that invest in our community. How can we be supportive of you? So Kendall and then Amina.
Wow, that's a wide open question. So we have grown since day one. We have grown from that first store on St. Paul Street in Baltimore to 90 stores. We did our first trade show large trade show right before the pandemic in January 2020, and tripled our wholesale accounts. And it has been just a steady growth since the beginning. So just grateful, and we're certainly open to continued growth, and very strategic and calculated regarding next steps. So if there are folks out there who are interested in conversation, we're certainly open to that conversation, and look forward to just growing deep and continuing to improve our product and relationship with the community.
Absolutely. How about you, Amina? What's your word? What would you like to say? How can Oprah and others? We have investors, we have consumers. How can we be supportive of you?
I guess, you know, same as what Kendall said, we're so grateful for everything that people have done to support small businesses, especially during the pandemic. And I will say that DC really came out to support small businesses during the pandemic. It's been a really long year, and it's always so hard to ask how can people support, but really it's just staying supportive, you know, telling your friends about your favorite small businesses. That does a lot for us. If you're sending a gift, keeping small businesses in mind when you're doing that. I feel like at this point in my life, nobody in my life is buying candles from like a non-small business, or if they are, they're hiding it. They're not doing it.
No one is undercover buying from,
you know, no IKEA candles anywhere I go. Any house I walk into, nobody has an IKEA candle anymore. They think that everyone's figured that out. But yeah, it's really just, you know, raising awareness, I think, is a very big thing. You know, I think it's much easier to walk into a Target and buy a candle, and not to say that there aren't small businesses in Targets, but usually they're not. And it makes a bigger difference to us when you support us directly, even if it's, you know, I know it's like much easier to buy at a store, but if you can buy online from us directly, like that is where it impacts us the most. And then we can also do the most with that. Like one thing that our personal goals are here is to start finding nonprofits that we can donate to monthly. And I'm in this process of figuring out whether it makes sense to donate to one nonprofit all year long on a monthly basis, or to spread that love out. And so we're also looking for those types of partners. If you have a nonprofit, especially like a local based one, not necessarily a very big national organization, then you're looking for, you know, businesses to work with, and not necessarily just on a donate to our sort of like gala, you know, gift basket sort of basis, like someone where we can have an ongoing relationship with. That's where we're focused right now.
It's a really good idea. I know we have a couple of nonprofits on as well. We also have some investors on, and we might even have Target on, who's just made the $1 billion pledge to have businesses, small minority-owned businesses in their store. So hopefully all of them hit every part of what you just said, and can be supportive. Let me make sure I get in before my last question, for people to understand how to get to your websites, how to follow you on social media, and then I'll get to the final question. So Kendall, how can people get in contact with you, reach you, follow your brand?
Yeah, the most activity for us is on Instagram, which is the number 228 Grant Street spelled out. And that's our website as well, 228grantstreet.com. And we're on Facebook. Don't do much on Twitter. Contact info is on the website, and you can inbox us on Facebook or Instagram as well.
Excellent. Amina, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best place to follow us is on Instagram. We're at Handmade Habitat. And then our website is handmadehabitat.co. We have all the other social media, but Instagram is the best place to follow us. And everything's always on our website, whatever we have.
Excellent. My last question is, what are you most proud of? Both of you. Well, I'm very proud of you. So I'm going to say that all the love you received on Facebook and in the chat demonstrates others are proud of you. But what are you most proud of thus far with your businesses? And so Amina, and then I'll go to Kendall.
I think just being able to say that I have a business and it supports me. I'm only 30, and it feels really good to have spent, you know, the really crucial years of my life where I was supposed to be building a big career path, that it has led to this point where I can stand on my own 2 feet with it.
Excellent. How about you, Kendall? What are you most proud of?
Similar. I'm proud of having taken the leap and believing in myself enough to follow this big, crazy little dream, and it has grown and flourished. And it's hard for me to be self-congratulatory, but I'm proud of what we've been able to do.
Excellent. Who's Rosa Brown? Is Rosa Brown your
She is my mother.
Your
my
mama's
madre.
watching. She wanted us to make sure we shouted her out. She is watching. She
And
wanted us
she
to let you-
and she inspired me as well. She was taking classes from the cooperative, taking ceramic classes, crochet classes, and I watched her as a child doing all of these creative things. So she's crafty and I'm crafty. So
Your
I
Uncle
love it.
Daryl as well. He's shouting you out too. You got the whole
Yes.
family on here. We like this. We like it. We like it. Let me first of all say, Kendall, both to you, Amina. One, just continue success. This was really a treat to have you both on here. You are extremely inspiring, and we just wish you all the best. And encourage others to, again, support these businesses and buy from them. Tell your friends to buy from them. Makes a big difference in our community. So let me close out by giving a couple of announcements, and then you are going to be off air, but we will return next Thursday at 1 p.m. with Jill Andrews of Jill Andrews Gowns and Latanya Turnage of Elite Bridal Secrets Bridal. These are going to be two bridal shop entrepreneurs. This is the first time we've ever had a bridal shops on here. So this is great. So you don't want to miss that conversation. Follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Email feedback to jhconnects@jhu.edu. I want to thank our community partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Hopkins Local, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Owned Business, the Warnock Foundation, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business, and Bloomberg Philanthropy. Thank you, Kendall. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
You're welcome.